Welcome to the Wave Strength. Innovative pension solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wave Strength podcast series. I'm your host, Jim Breen, and with us today is Michael Oler, head of Defined Contribution Lifetime Income Solutions for Pacific Life's Institutional Division. Michael, thank you first for joining us, for coming out here to the West Coast to join us in person in studio for this episode of the Wave Strength. Thank you.
That's my pleasure, Jim. Happy to be here and couldn't ask for a better place to come out and visit.
We have a lot to talk about today. First of all, you know, your role, very unique and relatively new with Pacific Life. So I want to get into that here in a moment. But first, let's talk a little bit about your background, Mike. And maybe you can help our listeners understand where you came from, your background. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe you can share that with us.
Sure, absolutely. I think out of school, I jumped right into the 401k industry working at a record keeper. Spent a few years there trying to understand what's the administration of these 401k plans, what are some of the operational components, and doing daily reconciliations to make sure participant balances were all squared up. But from there, moved to a different component of it in terms of insurance and trying to figure out ways for all these participants that we were monitoring accounts for, they've accumulated assets. What then do you do to help them turn those assets into lifetime income streams? And through my time working with an insurance company, also partnered with asset management companies to try to connect the two types of products that were available to participants in DC plans to offer solutions that were, I guess for lack of a better term, defaulted into these allocations. So participants were defaulted into investments, and these investments would have allocations to insurance products that would generate lifetime income for them and put into products where they receive the benefit that we're trying to give them that they wouldn't necessarily choose on their own. And I think now being at an insurance company, I'm back to being able to figure out creative ways that we can provide these solutions to participants in partnership with asset managers, in partnership with record keepers, in partnership with middleware providers. I think the common theme through all of my working years has been about how do you create that retirement income stream for participants when they're ready to retire. And I think insurance companies are really well positioned to be able to deliver that. So I'm excited to be here at Pacific Life to help drive those efforts.
Yeah, it's a real exciting time. You know, the institutional team within Pacific Life very much focused on innovative thought leadership, providing innovative solutions, really looking at the need for lifetime income solutions holistically. And I think your role is a very good example of that, right? Bringing this opportunity of somebody with, obviously, we've just learned, a lot of experience to the table, and finding interesting and new ways to communicate with the market. So we're very excited.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I think what I've seen so far, Pacific Life in my short time here, the energy is amazing. The ideas are incredible. And I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity ahead.
Let's dive into it. So, Defined Contribution Lifetime Income, DCLI, there really is, as I mentioned before, so much opportunity in the industry. And, I think at Pacific Life, we're really focused on education. We're really focused on a hearts and minds approach as it pertains to helping those participants be prepared for that journey, wherever they may be. But maybe you can share a little bit about how this role that you have will focus on maybe education or some of these solutions that we'll be able to bring to the table.
Well, I think an important point to start with is a lot of times individuals will look at retirement as a particular point in time in their career or in their life.
Great point.
I like to think of retirement as a journey. So it actually that journey starts the day you start working. And so what you're investing for, what you're saving for, most times is retirement. Now, there could be other things along the way that you're saving for, trying to buy a new home, trying to pay for kids' education. But along the way, you're also still trying to save for retirement, which is further down on the horizon. And so I think it's important that for people who are starting to save right away, that you've got that education coupled with it, the entire journey that goes with them. So earlier on, maybe the focus on the importance of saving and saving early and saving as much as you can, so they get the benefit of compounding over time, and they actually get the benefit of the savings habit so that it isn't something that becomes a burden to them later on. They're already used to that savings behavior. I think another important part of that is segmenting the education. So the information that you might want to give to new workers, it's clearly not going to be the same information that you want to give to someone who's about to retire. So what messages do you want to give to people who are approaching retirement, and what should they be thinking about? And then what is that message to that group in the middle who is still trying to save, but they're starting to think about and see retirement further down, closer on the horizon than when they started working. Sure. So I think the ability to have that consistent drumbeat of a retirement message, but make sure that it's tailored to the specific audience and what you're trying to get them to focus on is going to be key. And lastly, associated with all that is simplicity. I think being in the industry, we're very used to jargon in terms that are just second nature to us. I think we have to be careful not to slip into that mode when we're trying to create programs and education and experiences for participants because they're not as familiar with that terminology. So trying to distill, sometimes they're simple products, sometimes they're a little bit more complex products, but trying to distill all of that information to participants in a really simple way is going to be key to helping them understand what value it's going to bring to them.
You use the word simplicity, and I'm grateful to hear you say that because as a marketing guy, if we want to showcase or demonstrate a product or some sort of solution and use words when necessary, So I remember in one of our earliest conversations when you came on board with Pacific Life, I think I heard you say that, and I was yes, to hear you talk like that because I think that's so important. Because look, let's just take it down to a base level. We all have so much going on, right? Whether it's taking the kids to school or, remembering about the soccer practice, or it's, work commitments, whatever it may be, there's just so much happening. And unfortunately, retirement planning is something that's very easy to kick that can down the road, right?
Absolutely.
And especially in the news. Paul Hans talked about this in one of our recent podcasts where, unfortunately, it's just not something that has the teeth of an important news story, right? And there is a lot happening in the world right now. Unfortunately, it's a subject that gets pushed down the road a bit. Right. And so to hear you talk about simplicity, I think that's important because the easier, right, that we can make this conversation, the better off we can be. And also, too, I agree with you. I wish somebody, when I was just joining the workforce, came to me and said, that $3 you spent on the coffee, forget it today, put it into a retirement fund. Even that little bit, it's a small amount and compound interest is huge. But it's like working a muscle.
It is. And, I'll share a little bit of a personal story around that. When I had a part-time job in college, I received some information in the mail about some benefits that were available. And I was just ready to toss it aside. My father happened to be there when I was opening the mail. He's like, do you know you have access to a 401k? I was like, no, I don't. I don't even know what that is. He's like, trust me, you want to know what it is and you want to start saving. And that's one of the best tips I think I've ever received from my parents is to start that process early. I had no idea what it was. It was just, all right, I'm going to listen to my parents reluctantly and do what they say. I signed up for it. Deductions were coming out. To that comment earlier about the habit of savings, I didn't even realize it was coming out, right? Like it was just the paycheck I received and those deductions were taken out. And they were starting to invest for me and starting to grow on my behalf. And when I actually started a full-time job out of school and working in the 401k space, I was like, oh, wait, I do have money already saved up and I can roll it over into this plan and continue to grow those assets. So if it's all from that one conversation with my father that actually got me started in understanding what it was. And the career path here just happened to be a coincidence from on-campus recruiting. But the fact that the two connected for me is something that I think is a pretty simple story to get started and something that anyone can do if they just take that first step.
Well, a simple story, but an important one because it paints a picture of how easy it is, right? Because there are a lot of parents who never had the opportunity to learn about the importance of that, or they had just the regular pension that they never had to think
about saving, right? Because of that.
Never thought about it. And unfortunately, this isn't something that is readily taught in our schools today. And so your story is right on the nose. And I think that's why at Pacific Life, we're really trying to bring innovative ideas and a unique, fresh mindset to the educational playing field. I know with Destiny Laura, who just took the role from a defined contribution lifetime income standpoint, bringing the educational tools and solutions to the table. Very key. Very excited about that as well. moving on here, Mike. So as we look ahead, what's next?
Well, I think there's definitely a proliferation of products in the space.
Sure.
So the answer isn't products, but I do think we need to make sure we've got an eye towards what's working, what's not working, and make sure as we're starting to bring new solutions to market that we're aligned with what's needed. And I think we're doing a great job already in terms of bringing solutions to market, and we're starting to see success from a fairly new division, which is great to see. But I think ultimately, if we really want to see success in this particular area of retirement, it's going to be around education. And so what's going to differentiate providers is their ability to engage with participants and their ability to deliver the message and get them involved in trying to plan for retirement and plan for them in such a way that they're actually going to want to choose the products that their plan sponsors are offering. I think most individuals are already familiar with lifetime income solutions without even thinking about it. Pensions are something that is very often talked about. Now, not everyone is going to have access to them going forward, but people are aware of what they are because maybe their parents or their grandparents had a pension. And essentially what that is your employer making contributions to this pool of money that ends up paying out to you over time. And there's no decision that an individual has to make in that regard. Everything is done at the employer level. Think about Social Security, another form of lifetime income. Very similar in the sense of a pension is there's not a lot that you have to do. The deductions are automatically taken out of your paycheck to go to that Social Security pool. And then the government ends up paying you for your lifetime starting at an age in the future. The only decision you have to make is when do you want to start those payments, right? You don't have to worry about, how do I invest to get that money? What type of income option should I make? It's all done for you. And then you make that decision when you're ready to start receiving income. The challenge here for defined contribution is that you have to have participants make decisions on both fronts. How much do I need to save? How often do I need to save? And that's where products that have auto enrollment and auto escalation and allocations to default strategies are helpful because it kind of takes some of that off the participants' shoulders to figure that out. But even if you solve for the accumulation side of it, you still haven't given them a way necessarily to automatically generate income. So trying to educate them on what the decisions they should be thinking about as they're getting closer to retirement, what their options are in order to provide lifetime income from their nest egg, those elements are going to be key. And I think there's also I guess a hybrid approach, if you will, in the middle, where you can actually get them to start saving and accumulating income while they're working, similar to pensions or similar to Social Security. And I think the innovation in this space over the years has been around creating solutions that incorporate asset management and insurance together to really give that experience to participants without them having to make decisions. I don't think any one solution has cracked the code just yet. I think there are a number of players involved beyond just the product providers. I think you have to think about record keepers and middleware providers and other technology solutions that can help ease some of the operations and administration of these products, but also trying to figure out what's the right way to deliver that experience to individuals to help them understand how much income they're targeting or how much they might have accumulated and how that really fits in with their plan going forward.
We've gone to great lengths in the last 2 years to focus on participant experience, right? And that's so important. If we can make that process even easier through that digital experience, the easier it is for that participant. You still have folks who are used to faxing. They have to fax their documents, right? I mean, that's still something we see these days. And it's exciting to be part of this team at Pacific Life where we really are pushing the envelope as it pertains to technology, digital innovation on both the educational side and that participant experience.
And I think it's the natural next step in the evolution of this industry. Having been involved for as long as I have, there's definitely been a lot of progress made on what are the different types of product solutions, what are the right solutions to provide retirement income. I think the industry has solved the various ways to approach it, and I think that's important because not everyone's going to be the same. You want to have a different mix of products and solutions to meet the various needs and objectives of a vast population. But at the same time, once you get the product solved, then it becomes the administration and the operations. Can the record keepers connect to all the various providers to calculate and provide the income benefits to individuals? And I think with the introduction of middleware providers and that seeming to grow as its own little sub-industry within DC lifetime income, that shows that there's a recognition of the value that they play in the overall food chain for retirement income. So I think you've kind of taken the first two steps off the table. the next step is that actual engagement. And so I think what's exciting for someone who's been doing this for such a long time is to see that momentum really gaining in that particular area and the focus on it. And I think with firms like Pacific Life willing to make the investment in technology and partnerships to really make that happen, that's where hopefully we're going to start to see a lot of success, and hopefully we'll start to see a lot of that momentum in the industry overall.
I agree. And we've just seen, Pacific Life stand up so many resources for this new institutional team, and a lot of the partnerships, even within our four walls, that we've been able to utilize, even just from an HR standpoint, doing some of the empathy work that we've done within our four walls, just to learn, hey, what are our participants thinking as it pertains to education, or some of the solutions available to them, so that we have a place to start from, really looking at that hearts and minds approach.
Exactly. I think getting that feedback is important. I don't think we should make the assumption that just because you work for Pacific Life, you know what lifetime income is. We've got various divisions. We've got various functions. Not all of them are connected to annuity solutions or retirement income, or the way that these types of products are priced, or the value that they serve. So it's important to make sure that there's a recognition that just because you work in a particular industry doesn't necessarily mean that you know everything that you need to know in order to take care of that particular issue for yourself. And so starting with the empathy interviews is, I think is a great way to get that feedback. And I think we're also looking at other ways to expand those empathy interviews outside of our four walls. So try to work with some of our clients who've adopted solutions to get a little bit more feedback. What's working, what hasn't worked, what should we be thinking about to make this more inviting for participants, and make it something that they're more apt to understand and more likely to choose going forward as part of their path.
Well, Mike, this has been a great conversation. First, thank you so much for being with us, sharing your thoughts and insights on DCLI, and we'd love to obviously have you back.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'm glad the first showing was good enough that you want to have me back. So
absolutely,
I appreciate that, Jim.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us on another episode of the Wave Strength podcast. I want to encourage you to head over to YouTube, to Spotify, and Audible, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button so you can stay current with all of our upcoming new content. Mike, thanks again. And everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jim.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Although this podcast is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments, and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company, Newport Beach, California, and its affiliates, including Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products are issued by Pacific Life Insurance Company in all states except New York, and in New York by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This podcast was recorded on August 4th, 2022.